Good morning, everybody. We're up in the V-berth still, but I thought I'd show you guys the cool view with the fog. So our plan is today, in about a half hour, to get up and go and check and see if we can mount the rudder now that we got the bottom gudgeon secured. See if that 3M 4200 dried up and it works, and we got the new bolts in. We got the hand tiller on the rudder, and I was able to rig up something so we can kind of shove it in the ignition where the key broke off and turn it. So that should be able to start the motor, and we should be good to go, hopefully. I've called Kids Fuel Dock in Cape Giardia here and explained our situation, and he said that I could go tie up over there for a few hours and get an Uber into town or whatever, and go to the gas station, fill up my 5-gallon jugs. He only brings a truck down and is only diesel, and you gotta order 100 gallons or more at a time. So, but at least he's got a dock that we could dock up at, and that is really nice of him, especially considering everything that we have going on. So yeah, plan is right now to just get up, get dressed, and we'll start working on stuff. All right, everybody, we are back in the cabin. It's working, I think. It's working. I got it back attached. I even hooked up an autopilot with a rope there. And once I get up in the cockpit again, I'll show you the back. I have some seizing wire and a bunch of parachute cord holding it down to the gudgeon, so there's no way it'll pop up. And I think we're going to be able to do this till we can get to Kentucky Lake, and then we'll be able to we'll get new gudgeons I have mailed that are coming. They might already be there, and then we'll be able to open up the top of the pedestal and unscrew the cable from the chain, because there's a chain in there that goes on the wheel, and then on the bottom there's another gear. I don't know what you would call it. It's just a wheel that then goes into two bushings or bearings, and then there's got teeth on it, so a gear at the bottom, and there's like a metal plate that sits in there, and then you can tension it. There's two bolts up on the top that have different lengths you can do, and then it tensions the chain, and it's like a whole big plate that slides in and out of the wheel. And then on that chain there's a little like metal bracket that the cable screws into, and then by that, the chain going up and down, or around, you know, it goes up and down and moves that plate, which then pulls and pushes the cable, which then runs down there through the locker, out the back transom, and over to the rudder. And we'll see if we can find anything that would work. Like I was saying, Sinkle, the company that makes those pedestals, does not exist anymore, so I'm not positive if I can even find a cable that's the right sizes. Who knows, maybe we'll be able to rig up something, you never know. MacGyver. But I'm not positive if we'll be able to make it as like it was before, which kind of sucks, but we'll make do. We will make do, we will overcome. I was looking up some Ernest Hemingway, and he's got a good quote that says, the only thing you have to do in this life, through life and to the end, is last it. Don't be smashed by it. And we're not going to be smashed by life's endeavors and challenges, because this is nothing. I was thinking about it. Somebody asked me, you know, how can you handle all this stuff without just losing it? And this is easy. This is nothing. The boat is floating. We're dry. We're not dying. This is easy. On the homestead, I used to have to take care of another living person, my dad, and I was doing that by myself. And then I'm arguing with the doctors, trying to keep them alive longer and know the best, medical, procedures and things to do, while the doctors are dirt to dirt and they're not helping. So I'm having to like teach them the newest stuff and medical journals and all sorts of stuff. And then on top of it, we have to heat the house with wood. So you have to go cut wood, make sure you have wood in the boiler. The boiler doesn't go out. If the boiler goes out, you freeze and die, or all your pipes in your house freeze and break, which would be a horrible situation. And all the time of going through that, we ended up having we had a storm and the roof ripped off. We had a plumbing vent issue that when we first moved into the house, when you would flush the toilet, the shower would gurgle. And in my head, I always thought, yeah, you just add one vent. You just hook up to the vent system. It'll be a piece of cake. It won't cost much. And when we bought the house, the realtor that we used at the time was our buddy, and we were like one of the first houses that he had ever done. He said, don't get a house inspection. If you're going to get a housing inspection, the mortgage company won't approve it if there's anything major, or if there's anything minor, you can fix it yourself, because the mortgage company does inspection. Well, we paid for the house, so we didn't have to go through a mortgage company. So there was no inspection or no approval process, and that was dumb. Dad was getting sick, though, and he put it, me in charge of finding a place. And he got sick and got on disability, and that's what he wanted to do, was move to the country. And I was like, oh, okay, here we go. And yeah, that was the dumbest thing ever. Never buy a house and don't get a get an inspection first. If a realtor ever tells you that, it's the dumbest advice anybody could ever give you in life. It costs maybe $500 or $600, but in the end, if you have that, and if anything happens in the future, you can use that and for wiggle room when you're buying a house. You can use it to negotiate, or if anything happens in the future, and if you have to sue anybody or anything, you can use that and say, this is what was wrong, this wasn't wrong, you hid this, or you didn't hide this, or whatever. Anyway, back to the plumbing vent. So I ended up getting underneath the house. I had to cut a big hole in the floor, got underneath the house. I think in the, if you guys paid attention to any of my homesteading videos, you followed along with that. Well, we got under there. Come to find out, there was no vent. No plumbing vent whatsoever. So I had a plumber friend come out, and he looked, and we checked it all out. And the plumbing was literally duct taped together in places. It was crazy. So I ended up having to clean up the whole crawl space, encapsulate it. I put 6 inches of foam board around the whole crawl space wall, so it's really nice and warm down there. It actually cut down on the heating a lot. And then we had to have all new plumbing done. And also, while we were down there, to the fun, let's make it real exciting, we found out the main beam down the house was not done correctly. It was boards stacked this way, not this way, like when you do framing. And they started to sag after being from the 1960s, and the whole house was coming down, and they were starting to crack. So we didn't know if the house was going to cave in. And that was insane. And we went to get a company to come to look about fixing it, and they were like $40,000. We were like, oh. So my dad was dying. The house was falling in. The plumbing was all messed up. We had a storm, and the roof got a leak and ripped off, started to leak. And our insurance agent, for some reason, the guy that I was telling you about before with the boat, when we moved, he had it down that we had a manufactured home for some reason, not that it was an actual house that was built that has a foundation and everything. And I have no idea how he wrote it up wrong. And when we went to get the roof replaced, they didn't actually have the actual cash value, because there's when you go to get insurance for a house for your roof, there's the two things you got to make sure, and this is a very important thing you want to make sure. There's like actual cash value, which is at the time, if you need your whole roof replaced, it'll pay whatever the cost is at that time. And then there's another version, I forget the name off the top of my head, that is like depreciated value, which is whenever the roof was put on and then how many years, and it depreciates so much value each time, and then that's how much they'll give you to replace it. And you don't want that. Don't ever get that. But that's what we had, and that's what we didn't want. And my dad's told Owen this when we first got the insurance, and supposedly it was all right, but I guess it's on us because we were supposed to read the paperwork when we signed it, but my dad was getting old and losing it at the time, and I didn't realize it at the time, and he's my dad now. You know, your dad, he's in charge. So I don't know if it was on him or if he just thought, okay, this is what I told the insurance agent I want, why would he have anything different or like the complete opposite? But it just shows you always have to be your own advocate and look out for yourself in life. Even if you have somebody that you're hiring to help you, doesn't mean they will. Anyway, so we went to get the roof replaced, and they pay like half of what it was worth. So we had to come up with that, and it was just insane. Luckily, Dad was a disabled veteran, and Basements Unlimited, I think it is. I forget the name of the company, but the company was actually started by a Vietnam veteran. And I told him, I ended up going, you know, I talked to the salesperson, I talked, you know, just like, oh, all this stuff's happening. I just need to have a house that's not going to fall in before my dad dies, so that he doesn't have to worry about that, and we can just let him have not a super stressful last little bit of his life, his last year of his life. He shouldn't have to worry about if I get up and go to the bathroom, the house is going to fall in. If I flush the toilet, sewer gases are going to come up through the, you know, and how am I going to replace my roof? Am I going to go in massive debt and lose my house? So then when I die, my son, he's in massive debt. You know, it was just crazy. And they ended up doing it for like $8 or $9 grand. So that was really cool. And then the VVA, Vietnam Vets of America, donated like $4,000 to pay for half of, like, let's say 5/8 of it, or no, not, that'd be more than half. So let's say, what is it, let's say like 2/6, a third of it, pretty close. Because after taxes and you had to get permits and everything, it was like 10 grand. They paid like 4, so we paid 6. So whatever that percentage is. Anyway, so that was, we're like, oh, okay, yay. And then the plumber guy we had was a Masonic brother, so he ended up doing that for cheaper than it would normally cost, and he donated his time. And then I ripped out all the old plumbing to save on cost. And we were able to get all the plumbing replaced. The waste plumbing, not the like water plumbing part. I had already replaced that earlier when we moved in with Tex. That was, I ran individual lines with a water manifold, so that each line for like hot water and that, it was way more efficient. Everything was about efficiency on the homestead, because cutting wood sucked. And when you heat with wood in the winter, it was also the hot water. So anything I could do to make hot water more efficient, the house more efficient, boiler more efficient was priority, so that I didn't have to cut wood all the time, and I would have more time to actually work on the homestead and take care of my dad. And we wouldn't freeze to death because I couldn't keep up with cutting the amount of wood that I needed. And then to throw on top of all that, creme de la creme, my heart stopped, and I fell on my face, and my spinal cord, the disc in my neck, pushed into my spinal cord, and I was losing the use of my left arm. And that was insane. And I just, you know, you can't quit. You can't. If you do, house freezes, you die. If You know, you just got to keep everything going. You got to, you know, Dad's got to have his pills 3 times a day. If not, he'll die because he has heart disease, kidney disease, fill up with fluid. You got to have the fluid pills. And then I had to make all the food, and I had to measure like all the salt intake, because salt is huge when you have kidney disease and heart disease for water retention. And I had it down pretty good. I was able to get it where I could adjust his salt intake, and we wouldn't really have to adjust the water pills ever. But in a way that was bad, because then the doctors thought he was doing real good, and they wanted to take him off of his telehealth thing that we had, which was a thing that weighed him every morning, and it sent it to the VA. They're like, he's fine. And no, he was not fine. I ended up having to call the like patient advocacy office and explain to them so they could keep him back on. And then on the VA webpage it says, you know, any veteran that would like telehealth services is entitled to them, and like the remote monitoring and that. So we had to fight through that to get that, because I really needed that scale, because it was a Medtronic one that was super accurate. And it had a blood pressure cuff, and then we would do his O2 with a pulse oximeter, and then weight. And it would also then tell you every morning the next day, you know, you gained this many pounds, you lost this many pounds. And by having that, I would be able to adjust everything and get it, and we had it down, and it was cool. It was really good. We had a really good system going until what happened in the end there was the doctor, Dr. Scogan. I need to look into this too, because so what happened is he was doing better, and we ended up going to eat, and he got some hash browns, and hash browns have a lot of salt, and he filled up, so he had to go to the hospital to get dried up, pretty much is what would happen. Because they would be able to monitor closer than I would at home. I didn't have all the things, and I couldn't do labs at home. I wish I could. Then I would have been able to do, you know, everything. So we had to have him go there to get dried out. And what happened was, there's a pill you use, like Lasix, then there's Bucimex, and it's been a while and I can't remember them all. And then Bucimex, Torsemide, Formosified, Lasix, which is like your standard, that's Formosified, or water pills, Lasix. Anyway, and then there's like this, it's not metolazone, or is it methimazole was his thyroid one. It might be metoprolol succulent was heart. It might be metolazone. Anyway, it's a diuretic, but it's one that dries you out real quick. And it's good, but the problem is it's real like iffy. And it's okay if you have a lot of water and you got to get water off quick, and then you get them off of that, and then you use the less ones. But what was happening was COVID. So they're trying to get people out of the hospital as quick as possible so they can get these beds. And I had even told the doctor, because the Dr. Scogan worked at the VA, and then he also worked at the Onamia Hospital, so he was going between both, so it kind of worked out. It was like, oh cool, this will help us out. And in the end it did not. We'll get to that. So what happened is we had them there, we got them dried out. They used the metolazone, or I'm just going to call it metolazone, but I'm not quite sure if that's what it is. I'll look it up, and then in the future videos I can confirm with you. But it's a powerful diuretic. And it's known to cause kidney damage if you're too dry. So what you do is you use that one at first, then they get a little bit drier, and then you back off to the less powerful diuretics so you don't harm the kidneys. You know, that's, you know, Hippocratic oath, do not do more harm, all that stuff. So what happens is Dr. Scogan tells the Onamia Hospital, put him on this medicine, blah, 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 send him home, have him call me and come in 2 weeks. But what he had him on still was the metolazone, not the less diuretics. And if my dad would have came home on those, he would have dried out too much, his kidneys would have failed, and he would have died. I caught this. I called the Onamia Hospital before discharge, and I talked to the doctor on who was on duty. I explained to her the situation. I explained to her my dad has this he's real sensitive to this metolazone. It's caused issues with his kidneys in the past. This is crazy that I think Dr. Scogan just kind of said this, and then he thought whoever the doctor was here would change or whatever, but because he's the kidney doctor, you guys aren't changing anything. I don't know. Dr. Scogan also, like 6 months before that, had hit his hand in a wood splitter and messed his thumb up real bad and was on pain medicine all the time. So I don't know if he was just out of it or what, but looking back, it really bothers me, and to this day, I wish there was something I could do, you know, to report him, or something could come of it, but it hasn't. I haven't been able to do anything. So I talked to the doctor on duty. They're like, yeah, of course, I'm glad you caught that. And then they changed his medicine. We got him on, I think it was Formosified, and I forget what the other one was. And it was like this one every day, and then there was this one that you would do like every other day to kind of supplement, and then if his weight was good, we wouldn't do that. And I was working with Dr. Thatcher, who was a heart doctor, and he was amazing, super nice. We were good. And we were able to, it was insane. So this happened, we caught this, I had gotten so good at the diuretics at the time, I myself was able to be like, this is what we need. And I'm not a trained doctor at all, but I did it. And we got my dad back home, out of the hospital. He was dried out. We came back, we were able to get him, he had actually had an appointment with Dr. Thatcher a week after he got out, instead of, you know, waiting the 2 weeks to see Dr. Scogan, because the VA is backed up, and if you just got out of the emergency room for 2 or 3 days because you were too much fluid, you know, you should probably try to get in as close as you can, not 2 weeks. And like I said, if it would have went with what Dr. Scogan said, put him on that metolazone, he would have dried out way too much and he would have died. I don't know if Dr. Scogan was mad at me because I called that patient advocacy thing when we wanted him to still be on the telehealth, and they said that he didn't need to be on it, and he just kind of had some like resentment towards me, so he didn't want to listen to me, or if he just thought, you know, hey, I'm a doctor, I know better than this kid. So anyway, we got my dad home, we got to Dr. Thatcher, the heart doctor, and come to have it, my dad's kidney function had went from 21% or 21 EGFR to 28. It went up for the first time in like a while. And me and Dr. Thatcher talked about it, and we're like, yeah, I think it's because when you're doing these diuretics, because of the heart disease, they're affecting the kidneys. So what you're trying to do is to have as little diuretic as possible. And that's what my goal was, as little diuretic as possible, medicine-wise, because all medicines are basically a poison, but some, you know, they have a positive poison effect. But, you know, as little with kidneys, you know, it has to filter out everything you want, as little as possible coming through your body that is not natural. And we talked about it, and it was amazing. And Dr. Thatcher told me, he goes, your dad with his heart will live another 2 years, no problem, if nothing will happen to his kidneys. And we go, oh my God, yes, this is amazing. Because at this point, a year before, we were told he only had 1 year to 2 years to live, and we were at like the year mark, and he was starting to go into the doctor more and more for the for the fluid stuff. But come to find out, and we were starting to think of this conclusion, it was actually because Dr. Scogan was putting him on too much diuretics and not realizing, you know, what we need to do here is not use medicine to control his water, because it was like a balance between the heart and the kidneys, and we need to use diet and natural means, which doctors don't know about any of that stuff nowadays. I wish they knew more about it, to control it so that his kidneys can relax like a muscle and you know, relax and get a little bit healed up, and not be going through that, always trying to filter out this medicine and all this stuff. And it was just amazing. We're like, yeah. So we went home, And we were home for a few days. We're doing good. Yeah. We went out on the boat. We're doing good. Happy. And my dad said, let's go to Cedarwood again and have breakfast. You know, I'm doing better. My kidneys are better. If I end up going to the hospital for diuretic, you know, it's just a few days. I'll be fine. Don't worry about it. Everything will be okay. You know what you're doing. Let's just get the water off. But we probably won't have to do that because we won't eat anything the rest of the day with salt in it. And I'm like, okay. Against my better judgment, I was like, you know, okay, yeah. You know, I can't be Nurse Ratched. I can't just make you, you know, live a horrible existence where, you know, you can't have any salt or, you know, no anything, you know, exciting, no good foods. You know, it was all kind of bland, natural food, all natural. It's not as tasty as when you have salt and everything and all the cool spices and whatnot. Anyway, so I'm like, okay, we can. So, and then at the time, I had met my girlfriend, Brianna, and I'm like, okay, let's just do it. You know, she had never been there, and it was, I don't know, at the time, it was weird because I thought he was doing better. Like, in hindsight, I let my guard down, and in hindsight, it was one of these things that I'm like, boy, I wish I would have never did that, because then, like, domino effect, what happens was horrible. So, we end up getting into the hospital, blah, 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 blah. He's back at Onamia Hospital because we went out to eat. He had too much salt. He had to go back to Onamia Hospital, get dried out. In my head, I'm thinking, Dr. Scogan just went through this. We talked to him on the phone. He even said, good job at catching that. That's cool that you caught that and you know about that. Your dad's kidneys are doing better. Awesome. Blah, 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 blah. So in my head, I'm like, he would never do that again. He would not do what we just went through literally 2.5, 3 weeks ago, and we caught it and saved the day. He would never do that again. He did. And when they discharged my dad, I look at his medicine, and they had that medicine on there. And I'm going, oh, boy. So I call, when we get home, I called the telehealth thing, and I tell him I'm taking him off this medicine. We're going to use these diuretics. I have his weight. And, you know, I'm not a doctor, so they're kind of like, okay, whatever. And, you know, I think they kind of got an attitude because they were kind of like, what's going on? Because anytime they wanted to change my dad's medicine, I would question it. And they just kind of, I think they had an attitude of like, what is he doing? You know, he just got out of the hospital. This is what the doctor said. But Dr. Scogan has a bunch of patients. I don't know if he's all fucked up on, sorry, I swore. I probably won't be able to monetize this video, but that's okay. It's worth it for this story. You know, he's all messed up on pain pills, so who knows what he's doing. He don't know what's going on. And, yeah, so my dad got out, and, I'm like, oh, this is crazy. We have to switch these pills. And we had the, like, it ended up being 3 or 4 weeks out from the last time we had went to the ER for him to have the follow-up with Dr. Scogan. So it worked out. So he got out of the hospital, I think it was like a Monday. I took him off that medicine that we know hurts his kidneys, and I can't believe that Dr. Scogan just did what we just caught 3 weeks before and saved the day. He would never do that again. Well, he did, and what are we going to do? Because what's going on? We need to get labs, you know, because at the Onamia Hospital, they were doing his labs, and I didn't, you know, in my head, I'm like, he's doing okay. And I wasn't checking enough. And I had just got a new girlfriend, and I kind of let my guard down, and for a while there, after he passed away, I was really regretful for it, and I was just beating myself up, like, why did I get a girlfriend? Why wasn't I just focused on Dad? That was all I had to do. What was wrong with me? And, you know, there's nothing I could have done to change it. It would, you know, imagine a normal person that didn't have a patient advocate like me that was right there watching every little thing. It just, you know, there was, yeah. Anyway, so we get in, we go, and we get labs, and his kidneys are at like 12%. They're shutting down. We didn't get these labs, though, at the time when we got in there. So what happens is we go to the VA, we do his labs, we go up to see Dr. Scogan. Dr. Scogan's not there. His nurse is there, and he says he's going to call in because he's actually at Onamia Hospital, not at the VA in St. Cloud. And we're like, okay. So Dr. Scogan calls in, and we're talking, I talked to Jerry, his nurse, before Dr. Scogan called, and I explained to him the situation, and I'm like, this is kind of messed up that this happened. We just went through this. Why did Dr. Scogan do this after we just caught us and we were, why? And he's like, yeah, that's a really good point. I don't know why he did that. You're completely right. There's no reason he should have done that. He should have cut back on that powerful diuretic way sooner, and there's no reason he should have just discharged and said, discharge your dad, come in 2 weeks, stay on that medicine. Because that makes no sense whatsoever, because your dad has always been adjusting his diuretics, and at no point has he ever just been on that medicine. So it was the same medicine that when he first went into the ER, they put him on to dry him up real fast, and then they should change. And so what happened, I think, is Dr. Scogan talked to the people at Onamia, because they talked to him, because it's my dad's kidney specialist, and he said, put him on this medicine, have him come see me in 2 weeks. And then they took that literally, and they didn't change anything or do anything. So when Dr. Scogan calls, he calls in, and I'm real polite. I'm not like, hey, what, I'm like, that's messed up. We just went through this. Why did you do that? And he freaks out, and I don't want to swear again and end up having it not be able to post at all. He ends up freaking out, and he says, you guys do whatever the F you want. And then he hung up. Just hung up. And we're sitting here in the doctor's office, like, looking at each other. His nurse, Jerry, looks at me like, and he goes, I'm sorry, I've never had that happen before. I don't know what's wrong with Dr. Scogan. Maybe he's having a bad day. Opiates, pain medicine, makes you crabby. Anyway, so we're like, okay, and we hadn't got the labs yet because it takes about an hour, blah, 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 blah. Jerry says, hey, I'll call you when you're on your way home. I'll tell you what the labs are, and then we'll figure out diuretics from there. Don't put them on this medicine, blah, 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 blah. On the way home, right before we get home, Jerry calls me, and he goes, holy crap, your dad's kidneys are like 11% function. Normally, if we got the lab like this, Dr. Scogan would have emergency put your dad on dialysis and in the emergency room. But we can't get a hold of him, and you have to have a doctor sign off on emergency dialysis. So we don't know what to do. And I'm on the phone like, what do you mean? I didn't say this, but in my head I'm thinking, what do you mean you don't know what to do? So I say, should I take my dad to the emergency room right now? What should I do? They go, well, there's COVID right now, and all the dialysis places around are full, and, you probably can't just bring him to the ER and get emergency dialysis there. So let's get you home, and we'll come up with a plan. And I'm like, okay, so we'll do that. So we get home, and then I call Jerry back, and he goes, well, we still haven't talked to Dr. Scogan. We can't get a hold of him. I don't know what's going on, so what are we going to do? And I'm like, I don't know. He has Dr. Cooper, his primary care doctor. Can we get him into there? Can he sign off on something? And Dr. Cooper, he calls that doctor. Dr. Cooper wouldn't sign off on emergency dialysis unless he saw my dad. So we're like, okay, well, what do we do? And we can get him in Monday. It was like a Friday. And what do we do? And he's like, okay, well, we'll go in Monday. Come in Monday. Dr. Cooper can see him. We'll sign off on all the paperwork, and then we can bring you right over to, I think it was Centricare or something in St. Cloud that does dialysis. Or there was a dialysis clinic right there. We could, boom, get it done. Bam. Just watch your dad. Make sure everything's okay. If he gets worse, bring him to the ER right away. And I'm just like, oh, this is bad. This is bad. We should be to the ER. You just said normally somebody would be in the ER. So why am I not bringing him to the ER right now? And they're like, well, it's COVID. Everything's full. Even if you bring him to the ER right now, you're not going to be able to get him in. We'll start calling around. So it's all set up. It's going to take a few days to get a place. And we'll get him in there then. And there's all sorts of stuff about, you know, if somebody's gonna die, they're not gonna get you into emergency dialysis and take somebody else's place that you know is gonna live longer. So there's all these weird things with dialysis and trying to, you know, get in line when there's nobody, you know, there's no open places, and it's just like, and yeah, it was just insane. And then so we get home and we're like, and I'm like, Dad, we should just go to the ER now. Let's just go. We'll be there. They can monitor you because I can't do labs here. And if anything switches real quick, you know, we're in the middle of nowhere. The ambulance takes a half hour, 45 minutes to get here. Let's just do it. And he had just got out of the hospital, and he's sitting saying, no, I don't want to go right now. We just got out. We just got back from the VA. Can I just sleep tonight, and we'll get up in the morning and we'll go to the ER? And I'm like, okay, that's fine. You know, in my head, I'm like, okay, we'll be able to watch him. We'll be good. So we're there, me, my girlfriend, Brianna, we're watching TV. It was actually a really, really good night. It was, you know, you could tell he was kind of out of it, though, and I didn't know if that was because he had just got out of the ER a couple days before, and then he was on some pain medicine and stuff for his neuropathy, and he took a little extra, so because he could do 5 or 10 milligrams, and he took 10, I think, or I gave him 10 because that's what he wanted. I gave him his medicine, and so I didn't know if he was just loopy from that, or, you know, because when you get, your kidneys are worse, pain medicine affects you differently, so it can make you, you know, you might take this amount all of the time because of your neuropathy, but then when your kidneys are bad, that amount of pain medicine really affects you, and now it's like you took 50 milligrams of it, and you're like, woo-hoo, Rocket Man. And so I didn't know if it was that or what, and, you know, the toxins in your body and everything. And so yeah, so I was just watching them, and it was real good. And I told, you know, we went to bed, and I go, Dad, if you got to go to the bathroom or anything, do not go by yourself. Get me, call me, you know, it's real easy. You just yell, and I can hear you because our walls are real thin, and I put my bed right by the wall, and we had like a vent that I put in so I could hear him easier. And you know, call me, we'll be good, and then we'll go to the ER in the morning. We'll be good. Yay, everything will be okay. So we go to bed, and all of a sudden about 5 in the morning, I hear a big boom, and I'm like, oh shit. And I jump up and I run into the living room, and he had, trying to go to the bathroom, he fell down. And I don't know if he just lost his balance or if it was because of the kidneys, the toxins in his body. He was just out of it, because it was a normal place that he'd be able to walk fine. And there was place like that, we had our exercise bike that he could grab onto, and it looked like he just fell back and didn't even try to catch himself or nothing, or just fell straight back. And in hindsight now, come to find out, he ended up having some mini strokes, and they didn't know when that happened. So I don't know if he had that then, and that's why he fell, or what. But he fell, and he fell hard. And me and Brianna were able to get him up, and we got him into his, we did a pee bottle, we had him pee in that, and then we got him into his bed, and he's laying down, he's okay. And I'm like, should we call an ambulance now? Can we just go now? And he goes, no, just give me 2 more hours, you know, 8 o'clock, then we can do my medicine, because he doesn't like going to the ER, and if he didn't take his medicine, because you get to the ER, they don't know what medicines you have, it takes time, and we had it real set up where it was 8 in the morning, 8 at night, 12 hours between, because of the diuretics and the, you know, so you didn't have up peaks and valleys, so we were real precise, and he didn't want to mess that up. So he's like, can we just wait till 8? I'll take all my pills. You'll bring me up to the emergency room. We'll be okay. And I'm like, okay, are you sure? So he went back to bed, and me and Brianna went in my room, and I couldn't sleep. I just stayed up. Brianna got up. She went to work, and then I went to get my dad, and I'm like, all right, let's get up and go. And he couldn't get up. He said, I can't sit up. My back is just killing me. I can't get up. We need to call an ambulance. And for him to have an ambulance come, that was huge. He never wanted to call an ambulance, because he wanted me to bring him all the time, which was stressful, but we did. And I'm like, okay, are you sure? You know, what's going on? And he's like, yeah, it really hurts. And come to find out, he shattered a vertebrae in his back, and a piece of the bone was pushing into his spinal cord, which they did not catch right away. I knew how to read MRIs because of what happened to my neck, and when we were at the Mayo, I was able to catch that, because they're like, we don't know why he's in all this pain, and you could see there was just a teeny bit of a bone chunk that pushed over into the spinal cord, and that's all you need. You know, it didn't look like much, but it's all you need, and I know from my neck, and that's what it was, and that's why it hurt so much. And yeah, and then when we were down there, we got him emergency dialysis, and his kidneys, boom, he didn't need dialysis anymore, because it wasn't his kidneys that were shutting down because they were failing. It was his kidneys function. It dropped so much because he got dried out too much, and there was too much of that metolazone or whatever in it, you know, the toxin messed it up. But as soon as they were able to clear it out, he was good to go. But when they did it, they cleared him out. Your body has such a shock, he went into a coma, and they thought he was done. They had a neurologist come in, and they stuck a paper towel in his eye. He didn't even blink, and that was really hard. I remember when they did that, I wanted to be like, you do that to my dad again, I'm gonna mess you up, buddy. Don't you stick nothing in my dad's eye. But as a doctor, so I had to keep my cool. And then they're like, you know, if you want to call your family, blah blah blah. We moved him up to the ICU, and that was it. They said he's gone. He has no brain activity. He's probably not going to make it much longer, you know, blah 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 blah. So at the time, they only had one visitor at a time because of COVID. They changed the rules because he was dying. They thought this was like the first time. They're like, he's dying tonight or the next day. It ended up happening like 10 times, which by the end time, when they're like, he's not gonna make it, we're like, yeah, we've heard that before. So Brianna went and got my sister. She came down. I'm there. We're like video chatting, you know, trying to show you on the camera to show him just laying there, you know. And my mom was talking to him, and she was saying goodbye, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, my dad like sat up, not sat up, but like put his head up, looked dead into the phone with the video chat at my mom, and said, "It ain't over yet, bitch." And it was like just one of those funny, like crazy, surreal moments that my dad was just like me, the same attitude, you know, don't let nothing get you down, you keep going, and you take life and you show it who's boss. You know, he was a Vietnam veteran, he went through a lot of bad things, and you know what, you push on, you don't let it break you. And it was just crazy. He just sat up and he was like, "It ain't over yet, bitch." And it was not. We ended up having 4 more months of just insanity, of trying to keep him going, and getting stuff from the VA, and dealing with COVID, and no beds in hospitals, and all sorts of stuff. And it was just insane. And that's kind of the first time I've ever really talked about that. And now that I look back at it, that was so, thank you, YouTube land, for letting me vent. Out there, if you guys know if there's anything I can do to, you know, report Dr. Scogan, or somebody said I should try to sue him, but I think the VA, when you're a patient, you can't sue the VA at all. But it was just really sad that happened, and that Dr. Scogan had that happen. But the whole point of the story is when people are like, how can you handle this boat stuff? It's crazy. I go, this is nothing. This is child's play compared to what I've been through. So we will overcome. I'm gonna, now that's my morning blab session. We haven't had one of them in a while. I am going to finish getting the motor, and we'll see if this hand tiller works. And we'll kind of do a little bit of a round here in the anchorage, and then up over there on the side there should be kids fuel dock. I think it's kind of right behind this pillar, and I should be able to get up to there, tie off, go into town and get some supplies. I'm supposed to meet a friend here, but I can't get a hold of them now, so I don't know what's going on. But I really need to get a hold of them because I ordered supplies here. I ordered a bunch of two-stroke oil and ring clean for the rest of our trip. Because after coming this far, I figured out how much I use per mile and all of that. So I figured if I just ordered it now, I'd have enough for the rest of the trip. We're going to get 8 more bottles of two-stroke oil, 1-gallon bottles. And then I think it's like 6 bottles of ring clean. And then I want to get one of my drill bits and 2 5-gallon. We have, this one is full with 6. We have the 1 5-gallon can, and we have almost, I think it's 3/4 of a tank of gas in the boat. But we're going to end up in Ohio there. And after here, there is nowhere to get gas from here to Paducah, which is, I believe, 120 miles. So before we were getting like 10 miles a gallon. It went down to like 8. Going upriver, I'm guessing we're going to be getting like 5. So 5 miles a gallon with let's say 200 miles we got to go, because we're going to be going upriver. It's going to be more on the boat. We're not going to really physically go 200 miles, but like to the engine, the amount of push. So 200 divided by 5 is 20 gallons of gas. So we are going to need, we have probably 10 and probably 7, or it'd be close. So it's good to just fill those ones up, and then we'll have 30 gallons of gas plus the 2.5 in our here. Right now it's almost empty because we've used it a few times as a spare, and then yeah, we've just used it a few times. And then when we were passing a barge the other day, we used it and the main motor to give us a little more power when we were hitting anything. And I don't know, I guess I thought that thing would use way less gas than it does, but it uses a lot. It's old 8-horsepower Johnson. It is not as efficient as the OMC sail drive. Maybe I'll run some ring clean through that, and we'll see what happens. But that's, the thing should work pretty good. We're gonna fire up the engine here and let it warm up. I'm gonna get both anchors up. I'm gonna have to see how that is, because we've been spinning around here a lot, so I don't know if they're all tangled up, but I did drop them right next to each other. So it shouldn't be, if it's tangled, they'll just be wrapped around each other. It's not going to be like one's over here and one's over there and they're all weird. One thing I had been doing, which kind of helped, I found, I was looking online and people were talking about sea anchors. Well, it's not a sea anchor, but a river anchor. And one thing you can do is, I did a rope with a bunch of towels on it. Not big towels, but little hand towels. And then that catches the current, and then it kind of helps. It doesn't help a whole lot if it's real windy, but if there's a slight wind, and because we're behind the weir dam, and there's another weir dam there, and the river's real current to begin with, that will help out. Is we have this solar panel here, and it's kind of at an angle, and what'll happen is the river current will push this backwards, and if the wind's coming from that way, it hits this, and then we sail forward until the anchor catches. So, you know, we'll be back on the anchor. Anchor will be, you know, up, say here. We'll be back here on the line. You'll end up going. It'll push you. The anchor will get tight. The side of the back of the boat will end up spinning to the side enough that the wind isn't pushing it anymore, and it's sideways, so the current is pushing it way more, and it'll start to come back on the line. The line will go actually slack a lot of times, and then bam, it'll get tight, and then it'll pull the front back over, and the back end will face the wind again, and then you'll go poof, and then sideways back. So that's what we've been doing the whole time we've been here. So, all right, that barge is by us. I think everything's gonna work out. We're gonna warm the motor up and we'll give this a go. Well, everybody, it seems to be holding up. Just gotta steer with it. It's nice and easy to steer, actually. I didn't know how hard it would be. And yeah, it's actually working pretty good so far. I got this rope here, so if I let go, it doesn't just shoot off to any side. And then it's at the very end, so if I have to make a big turn, I can just pop the loop off, and then it's not tight. But with the way I have it, I can make little adjustments. And seems to be working. Seems to be working so far. So we'll get up here over to Kids Fuel Dock and get tied up, and then we'll figure out what we're gonna do from there. Here is Kids Fuel Dock, so we should be able to be good to go to get up here. We're in 15 feet of water. When I called him, he said you got 8 at the dock, so I'm hoping that's what it is, and we'll find out. So far the tiller's working. I think the starter solenoid burnt out though, because even with hot wire in the key, it did not work. We could move it to ignition, but it won't fire the starter, so I had to use a screwdriver and do it that way. So I've got to get us docked, and I want to pay attention, so I'll be back once we're at the dock. All right, we're able to get into town. My lens is a little dirty. We had Randy from Mississippi River Angels meet us at Kids Fuel Dock. And he brought us into town to fill up our 10-gallon jugs and then get the mail that we had sent to a buddy's. Carrying 2 5-gallon gas jugs. Like a half a mile. Woo! In your head you think a half a mile, it's not that far, but it's a lot farther than you think. So, I'm gonna go grab my other package out of his truck, and then we'll head back down to the boat. Alright, everybody. So we're heading back. This is what we gotta walk down. It's kind of a cool dock, though. It's on wheels. And as the river depth changes, it changes. So that's pretty cool. We definitely thank you to Kids Fuel Dock for letting us come up and tie up here. And thank you very much to Randy from Mississippi River Angels for coming down and helping us out, because we needed it. We needed it. So we got all our packages that we had sent here earlier. It's our 2-stroke oil and our ring clean. I was able to 2 other gas cans, so we have a full 30 gallons of gas. We should be good to go to get down to Paducah. It's a little late in the day, so I think I'm gonna go and anchor right under the bridge there again overnight, and then we'll get a good start to it tomorrow morning. So I'm gonna get everything on the boat, and I'll come back shortly. Well, here is Cape Girardeau, Missouri. Thank you, Kids Fuel Dock and Randy, for helping us out. I think instead of going to the anchorage we were at, we're going to try to go a little bit farther south and get to the diversion channel, because then we won't be hunting the whole time. It should be a little bit easier. So everything seems to be working okay so far. We'll whimper down, get by what we can. Heading south. It's about another 2 miles from where we're at to the little diversion channel, so that shouldn't be a problem. We got this. We're making progress. Tiller's working okay so far. It's not real hard hard to do because I found out we have a balanced rudder, so that it's just easier to do. Here we go. All right, everybody, we're in the little diversion channel. We're in about 10 feet of water. It goes from like 20 to 10 pretty quick, so I just stopped and set the anchor. I'm not chancing going up there. A lot of people said you could go up to that bridge, but with everything we've been having going on, no. We just want to make do. We did make it 2 miles farther south today, so we are still moving south. Progress is being made. It's like 82 degrees, so it's really nice today. Or not 82, it is, hold on. I am not sure. I thought I had the weather channel on my phone here. I don't. Anyway, it's hot. It's warm compared to what it's been, and I'm liking it. So, I'm gonna, now that we're all anchored, I'm gonna check out the rudder and make sure it's still, I'm pretty sure it is. So we should be good on that. And we're out of the way of all the barges that go by up there underneath the bridge. Calm and relaxing night. We got our AIS on our remote helm here, and then up on in the radio inside. We should be able to just take it easy here. Should be able to just take it easy here. So I'll come back in a few hours here after I get some more work done on the boat and get some more things figured out, and we'll go from there. Well, everybody, it's a nice peaceful place off of the river. And the Facebook group for the Great Loop just informed me, hey, might not be pretty, but at least you're off the big river for your first time in a while. And I just thought of that. This is the first time we've been off of the Mississippi since we started our journey. So we have another beautiful sunset, and we're just gonna take it easy here. There's no wind because we're kind of down in the valley because of how low the water is, which is nice. And we're just kind of taking it easy here. I'm glad that we're actually able to still function as a sailboat. So, well, a boat. We haven't even got to sail yet. I can't wait to do that, actually. That's the whole point of the trip. And, yeah. So, I'm going to get everything kind of cleaned up here and call it a night. And I'll see you guys in the morning.